Adi-Lila 246. Yeah, I also get a slight memory of we had stopped at one particular pastime.
Yeah.
So text 246, Adi-Lila 17th chapter. विजयाचार्य घरे से रात्रि रहिला प्रातःकाले भक्त सभी घरे लय गेला. Translation: That night the Lord stayed at the house of Vijayacharya. In the morning the Lord took all his devotees and returned home. Text 247. This is the beginning of another pastime. Ekadina gopi bhave grihite vasiya gopi gopi nam laya vishanna hoya. One day the Lord, in the ecstasy of the gopis, was sitting in his house. Very morose, in separation, he was calling Gopi, Gopi. Text 248. Ek paduya aile prabhu ke dekhite, Gopi Gopi naam shuni lagila bolite. A student who came to see the Lord was astonished that the Lord was chanting Gopi Gopi. Thus he spoke as follows. Text 249. Krishna naam nalao kene Krishna naam dhanya Gopi Gopi bali leva kiba hai punya. Why are you chanting the names Gopi Gopi instead of the holy name of Lord Krishna, which is so glorious? What pious result will you achieve by such chanting? Prabhupada writes a very interesting purport here. It is said, Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Vikyena Bhujaya, Chaitanya Charitamrta Adi-Lila 23.39. No one can understand the activities of a pure devotee. A student or neophyte devotee could not possibly understand why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was chanting the name of the gopis. Nor should the student have asked the Lord about the potency of chanting Gopi Gopi. The neophyte student was certainly convinced of the piety in the chanting of Krishna's holy name, but this sort of attitude is also offensive. Dharma vrata tyaga hutadi sarva shubha kriya samyam api pramadaha. To chant the holy name of the Lord, to chant the holy name of Krishna in exchange for the achievement of piety is an offense. This, of course, was unknown to the student. Thus he innocently asked, what piety is there in the chanting of the name Gopi? He did not know that there is no question of piety or impiety. The chanting of the holy name of Krishna, or the holy name Gopi, is on the transcendental platform of loving affairs. Since he was not expert in understanding such transcendental activities, his question was merely impudent. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, apparently greatly angry at him, reacted as follows. Let me see, we'll just have a small interjection here. And that is, we are encouraged to ask questions. We are told that don't take the path of yoga, the path of bhakti yoga or the path of Krishna consciousness as something sentimental. Then why is this question here? There is so much of objection that we should not have asked like that. And perhaps that is the reason why, at least in India, we have so many, I'm not saying millions, but at least so many dozens of societies, and they have spirituality as their aim, but there is simply no encouragement for asking any type of question. You are just told that you don't worry, we have figured everything out, and you just do as you are told. Okay? And then we have, as a reaction, especially from The Western world last 200, 300 years, question everything. Don't accept anything unless it appeals to you, unless it appeals to your senses, unless your mind is comfortable. Now see the danger in both. If you simply don't ask questions, there are chances that your so-called teachers could be cheating you. Your so-called path may not be leading you to the highest goal. And the other end of the spectrum, where you are encouraged to ask a question each and every time you are told to do something, you might not take off, as they say. So from the scriptures, we learn the benefits of asking relevant questions and also refraining from asking questions which may be beyond our ability to comprehend. So, any questions or any thoughts on this topic?
So Prabhuji, I was just, as you mentioned that in India, we see that, yeah, a lot of them don't ask questions. That is like the way we were conditioned, like from ancient times, because elders, they know everything, parents know everything, your teacher knows everything. So whatever they say, you were conditioned in a way to accept and follow that. And that tradition is still going on now, but the times have changed. Now there is a cheating propensity in present times. So that is not good, but otherwise, isn't it that aspect in a person is signifies humility and submissiveness?
Oh, yes. Maybe slightly related, but very significant. 2 days ago, about 125 devotees who are all the leaders of the Radha Gopinath community, we had gone to the Govardhan Eco Village. And there, luckily, we had a chance to celebrate the 64th marriage anniversary of Sahadev Prabhu and his good wife Sucharita Mataji. Now, isn't this a rarity nowadays that people are close to each other, staying in the same marriage for 64 years? And we made them exchange garlands once again. We made them feed each other cake. And I think one young lady asked them, what is the secret of you staying together? So first of all, they said, we never saw each other before marriage. Can you imagine? He said, my wife was 18, I was 22. And the match was done by some elders. So this is where the traditional concept of you don't need to worry about anything. We know what is good for you. Hardly any takers nowadays for this kind of philosophy. And then, surprisingly, they gave 2 or 3 reasons. One of them was, now this is Sahadev Prabhu, the husband, saying, I never expected anything from my wife. I always thought I have to give her. And she said the same thing. I never expected gold, jewelry, saris, this, that. And actually they came from a very good family, North India. Their house was a 13-room house, traditional house. And for some reason they had to come to Mumbai, and then it was like just 2 rooms. So, but they said through thick and thin, for better or worse, we are together. And she said, I took care of the kids. They have 2 children. Their school education, their career. Like the son told his father, I passed my MBA qualifying exam. He said, oh, very nice. After 2 years, he said, I got distinction in my MBA class. He said, oh, very good. So the father was kind of not even knowing what what was happening, because both of them had taken that shared part of the responsibilities, and they had faith that, well, if one partner is doing something, the other is doing his or her job very well. So it is a mixed bag. I can agree with you. Uh, every law, this is my own understanding, every law is a reaction to something that has happened. I'll repeat once again. Every law is a reaction to something that has happened. Like in the US, there is a child helpline. You just call, and you may say that, my parents are abusing me, or my single parent, I have this problem, and the officers are trained to behave in a way that the child is telling the truth. Don't believe the adults. Isn't it like that? At least for the first 24 hours, they will take the parents, they might make a psychological assessment whether somebody is fit to take care of them. Why? Because of so much of widespread abuse, whether they are alcoholics or drug abusers or mentally not stable, all these kinds of things are there. So one cannot say that the ancient system was the best, because you just believe all your superiors, what they told is true. Like when Prabhupada came to America, it was the hippie movement and the anti-Vietnam War. And one of our sannyasis, Devamrit Swami, his uncle used to tell him that, son, we are America. We are the world police. We are the world's largest democracy. If we don't uphold certain values, the world is going to hell. And that's why we have to go to Vietnam, and we have to save that country from communism. And he said, I was in Yale. Devamrit Swami was studying in Yale at that time. And somehow he escaped the draft board. He was allowed to continue his education. But then those who came from Vietnam, they didn't talk about it. 15, 20 years later, they started talking. And now people say, why the hell did we go there? It was somebody else's war, and we go there and start killing people. So human society at one point of time is so convinced about something. Maybe a decade later, everybody is saying, whose fault was it that we sent our boys to that far off, God-forsaken place? So one thing was that a whole generation was getting an experience of never trust anyone. In fact, when Prabhupada came to the Bowery in New York, one boy told him, our motto is, don't trust anyone above 30. Just see. And Prabhupada, with his gentle demeanor, with his Krishna Prasad, with his love, affection, he was 70 when he was trying to convince these young boys and girls to accept the path of Krishna. In fact, one Bowery newspaper, just see the language. They said there is a Swami, an old man come from India, and he's teaching the new path of love. And this Swami, they say, 4 years more than his allotted. See the language? That means he must have left his body 4 years ago, and somehow he's surviving. So this was the atmosphere in which Prabhupada entered, and he knew exactly, I cannot force them to accept me. Through his love, there was one occasion when somebody kept on challenging, why Krishna, why chant Hare Krishna? And with tears in his eyes, Prabhupada folded his hands and said, could you please believe that I have not come to cheat you? Tell me, am I selling the mantra? Am I making money for myself or my family? What exactly is the selfish nature that may motivate me? So please believe I have not come to cheat you. At one point of time, it came to that. Yeah. So we will continue reading unless somebody has any other point to say. We can also talk about it later. So, Mahaprabhu became very angry. Why? Now it is explained. Text 250. Shuni Prabhu Krode Kaila Krishne Doshodkar Thengalaya Utila Prabhu Paduya Maribar. Hearing the foolish student, the Lord became greatly angry and rebuked Lord Krishna in various ways. This is Krishna, and Krishna is scolding Krishna. That's what we have to understand. So the Lord became angry, rebuked Lord Krishna in various ways. Taking up a stick, he rose to strike the student. Purport. It is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam that when Uddhava came from Lord Krishna with a message for the gopis, all the gopis, especially Srimati Radharani, denounced Krishna in various ways. Such denunciations, however, reflect an exuberant loving attitude that an ordinary man cannot understand. When the foolish student questioned Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Chaitanya similarly rebuked Lord Krishna in loving exuberance. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in the mood of the gopis and a student advocated the cause of Sri Krishna, Lord Chaitanya was greatly angry. Seeing his anger, the foolish student who was an ordinary atheistic Smartha Brahmana, here Smartha Brahmana is an important word to understand. Smartha means those who just follow a ritual for the sake of following. They may know the letter of the law, but they don't know the spirit of the law. That's how we explain it nowadays. So who was an ordinary atheistic Smartha Brahmana foolishly misjudged him. Thus he and a party of students were ready to strike the Lord in retaliation. After this incident, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to take sannyas so that the people would not commit offense against him, considering him an ordinary householder. For in India, even now, a sannyasi is naturally offered respect. So this is the explanation that Lord Chaitanya was in a greatly elevated mood of the gopis, and therefore the gopis sometimes criticize Krishna. But that Prabhupada says it is an exuberant loving attitude that an ordinary man cannot understand. I have a small story which has always inspired me. I'll just share that with you. That a woman was staying with her young son. Apparently, there is no husband mentioned in the story. And one day, the small kid is not eating his food or not behaving properly. So she says that if you don't eat now, I will throw you to the wolves. And the kid is very frightened. What do you mean wolves? What kind of wolves? What are wolves? So she described a wolf. And it so happened that a wolf who had not eaten for almost 3-4 days was going around, and he heard this woman saying that if you don't eat, I'll throw you to the wolves. So he said, I'm on my way to some village to see if I find something, some dead carcass or whatever. But here this lady is saying that I'll throw you to the wolves. So he just waited outside. So the kid finished his food or whatever. And then the lady came out for some household work. And she saw the wolf obediently sitting outside her door. And she said, hey, what are you doing here? He said, well, since your son is so disobedient, I'm just waiting when you will throw him out of the house so I can eat him. She said, you rascal. She went inside, was trying to find something. Now in India, traditionally, the clothes are washed and beaten with a heavy wooden kind of an instrument. And she took that out, aimed at his head, bam! And he practically became unconscious. He was reeling and he just got up and left, fled the scene as fast as he can. And after going in the forest, he was saying, what did I do wrong? I mean, this woman is saying, I will feed you to the wolves. And that's why I'm standing there. And when I honestly told her that I'm here to eat your son, she hits me with that wooden thing. And then, my God, these humans, they speak one thing and they mean something else. I always ponder over this, that did she really want her son to be killed and eaten by a wolf? Certainly not. Similarly, when we see the highest expression of love for Krishna, where in the Krishna book, the gopis and Radharani, they say, don't think of Krishna. He's the debauchee. He's completely untrustworthy. We want to give him up. We don't want to think about him. What gain is there in thinking about Krishna? He leaves you and then you become simply miserable. So this is not the complaint of some frustrated sadhaka like you and me. This is the expression of love at the pinnacle of loving relationship. So when a sadhaka means one who is practicing devotion, our stage, yours and mine. Sometimes we may say, oh Krishna, I love you so much. But it's not true. We haven't gained that maturity in love. So we may say that I'm trying my best. That's acceptable. With your current conditionings and with your current anarthas in your mind, lust, anger, greed, you're trying your best. Full marks for that. But if you say, because I am trying my best, Krishna should be supremely happy with my effort. Oh, that's a different story. So I hope you understand what point I'm trying to drive. That at a particular level, especially when we are trying to understand the gopis' love for Krishna, suddenly everything is turned upside down. Instead of worshipping Krishna, the gopis criticize her. But when we see Krishna's mindset, now which devotee or which group of devotees does the Lord feel that I have to become like them in order to understand what is pure love? Lord Chaitanya has not come to taste the mood of Dhruva or Prahlad, although they are pure devotees, Pandavas. It is said that he came to taste the love of the topmost of the gopis, that is Radha. So this simple fact should prove sufficient to understand on what level the Vrindavan loving pastimes go on. So clear about this? Okay. So we move on. Text 251. Bhaye palay paduya, Prabhu pache pache thai, aste vyaste bhaktagana Prabhu re rahai. The student ran away in fear and the Lord followed him. But somehow or other, the devotees checked the Lord. So the flowchart is like, this is as follows. Lord Chaitanya is chanting Gopi, Gopi in complete separation. One student comes and says, hey, there is no holy name like Gopi, Gopi. Krishna's name is so glorious. Why don't you chant Krishna's name? And in the mood of the gopis, Lord Chaitanya is saying, I don't care for Krishna. And the student is very angry. And the Lord then takes a stick and runs after them. So somehow the students run away and the devotees came and checked the Lord. Please don't do that. So the devotees pacified the Lord and brought him home. And the student ran away to an assembly of other students. Let us see what he does there. But text 253. Paduya sahasra jaha pade kathani Prabhu Vrittanta Dvija Kaheta Jai. Translation: the Brahmana student ran to a place where 1,000 students were studying together. There he described the incident to them. Purport. In this verse, we find the word Dvija, indicating that the student was a Brahmana. Actually, in those days, Only members of the Brahmana class became students of Vedic literature. Schooling is meant especially for Brahmanas. Previously, there was no question of schooling for Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, or Shudras. Now, why this is so properly explaining here? Kshatriyas used to learn the technology of warfare, and Vaishyas learned business from their fathers or other businessmen. They were not meant to study the Vedas. At present, however, everyone goes to school and everyone is given the same type of education, although no one knows what the result will be. The result, however, is most unsatisfactory, as we have seen in the Western countries especially. The United States has vast educational institutions where everyone is allowed to receive an education, but the result is that most students become like hippies. Higher education is not meant for everyone. Only selected individuals trained in Brahminical culture should be allowed to pursue a higher education. Educational institutions should not aim to teach technology, for a technologist cannot properly be called educated. A technologist is a Shudra. Only one who studies the Vedas may properly be called a learned man, Pandita. The duty of a Brahmana is to become learned in the Vedic literature and teach the Vedic knowledge to other Brahmanas. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we are simply teaching our students to become fit Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. In our school at Dallas, the students are learning English and Sanskrit, and through these two languages, they are studying all our books, such as Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita as it is, and the Nectar of Devotion. It is a mistake to educate every student as a technologist. There must be a group of students who become Brahmanas. Without Brahmanas who study the Vedic literature, human society will be entirely chaotic. Text 254. Shuni Krodha Kaila Sabha Padujaragan Sabe Meli Kareta Be Prabhura Nindan. Translation. Hearing of the incident, all the students became greatly angry and joined together in criticizing the Lord. So now it is reversed. Now the students group is criticizing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 255. Sabadesha Brashta Kaila Ekala Nimai Brahman Marite Chai Dharma Bhai Nai. What they're saying is Nimai Pandit alone has spoiled the entire country, they accused. He wants to strike a caste Brahmana. He has no fear of religious principles. Purport. In those days also, the caste Brahmanas were very proud. They were not prepared to accept chastisement even from a teacher or spiritual master. Text 256. Puna jadi aiche kare mari bata hare konva manusya hai ki karite pare. Translation. If he again performs such an atrocious act, certainly we shall retaliate and strike him in turn. What kind of important person is he that he can check us in this way? Text 257. Prabhura nindaya sabar buddhi haila nash supatita vidya karao nahai prakash. Translation. When all the students thus resolved, criticizing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, their intelligence was spoiled. Thus, although they were learned scholars, because of this offense, the essence of knowledge was not manifested in them. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Mayaya paritagyana asuram bhavamashrita. When one becomes inimical to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, adopting an atheistic attitude, asuram bhavam, even if one is learned scholar, even if one is a learned scholar, the essence of knowledge does not become manifested in him. In other words, the essence of knowledge, the essence of his knowledge is stolen by the illusory energy of the Lord. In this connection, Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Rathi Thakur quotes a mantra from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad 623. Yasya deve para bhaktir yatha deve tatha guru tasyaite kathitai artha prakashante mahatmanaha. The purport of this verse is that one who is unflinchingly devoted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu and similarly devoted to the spiritual master with no ulterior motive, becomes a master of all knowledge. In the heart of such a devotee, the real essence of the Vedic knowledge becomes manifested. This essence is nothing but surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vedeshcha sarvairahameva vedyaha. Gita 15.15. Only unto one who fully surrenders to the spiritual master and the Supreme Lord does the essence of Vedic knowledge become manifested, not to anyone else. The same principle is emphasized by Sri Prahlad Maharaj in Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.24. Iti pumsar Vishno bhaktischennava lakshana kriyate bhagavati adha tanmanye tamuttamam. A person who directly applies these 9 principles, hearing, chanting, remembering, etc., in the service of the Lord is to be understood as a greatly learned man who has assimilated the Vedic literatures very well. For the goal of studying the Vedic literature is to understand the supremacy of Lord Sri Krishna. Sridhar Swami confirms in his commentary that first one must surrender to the spiritual master. Then the process of devotional service will develop. It is not a fact that only one who diligently pursues an academic career can become a devotee. Even with no academic career, if one has full faith in the spiritual master and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he develops in spiritual life and real knowledge of the Vedas. The example of Maharaj Khatwanga confirms this. One who surrenders is understood to have learned the subject matter of the Vedas very nicely. One who adopts this Vedic process of surrender learns devotional service and is certainly successful. One who is very proud, however, is unable to surrender either to the spiritual master or to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, he cannot understand the essence of any Vedic literature. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.11.18 declares, Shabda Brahmani Nishnato Nanishnayat Pare Yadi Shramastasya Shrama Phalo Hiya Dhinum Eva Rakshitaha. If one is learned in the Vedic literature but is not a devotee of Lord Vishnu, his work is a useless waste of labor, just like the keeping of a cow that does not give milk. Anyone who does not follow the surrendering process but is simply interested in an academic career cannot make any advancement. His profit is only his labor for nothing. If one is expert in the study of the Vedas but does not surrender to a spiritual master or Vishnu, all his cultivation of knowledge is but a waste of time and labor. Any comments or questions before we proceed?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Danvat Pranams.
Hare Krishna, welcome.
Prabhuji, it's mentioned that if we simply put faith in our spiritual master, we can understand the knowledge of the Vedas, right?
Yes.
Then in our ISKCON, why we have lot of courses to study and everything, Bhakti Sastri, lot of courses to have, right? To study.
Oh, what is the name of your founder Acharya? A.C.
Vedanta Swami Prabhupada.
Bhakti Vedanta. So there is Bhakti and Vedanta. Bhakti is the heart, which is full of love, and Vedanta means the brain or buddhi, intelligence, which is purified. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was a top civil servant, a magistrate in a high court. He wrote 150 books. And after him, we have Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, who could not write his own name. And after him, we have Bhaktivinoda Thakur's son, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he was a scholar of astronomy, languages, Sanskrit. At age 4, he memorized the whole Bhagavad Gita. Then he could give commentary on that. And this Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say that all Vedic knowledge is concentrated in the dust of the lotus feet of my Guru, Gaur Kishore Babaji. So, certainly our lineage of spiritual teachers has seen some of the most brilliant scholars, and other end of the spectrum is complete illiterate people, which means the knowledge of Krishna doesn't depend on your school or college education. That is point number one. If somebody has the acumen to understand, he should be encouraged. And by your karma, if you simply don't have that, there is no need to be discouraged. That's the point to be understood. So, the books given by Vaishnava Acharyas, the books given by our gurus, and the courses which are conducted on the basis of those books, that knowledge is not the dry knowledge of the Gyanis. That knowledge is something which we should be understanding, that brings us closer to Krishna. So there is knowledge which brings you closer to God. There is knowledge which makes you proud and takes you away from God. So if somebody has that interest, and by the way, if you read Prabhupada's letters, there's Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav, that is all started by Prabhupada himself. He encouraged that we should have this kind of courses, we should have universities, we should have institutions where all these things, there was no online class at that time, but I'm sure if Prabhupada comes today, he would heartily encourage all these kind of courses, for we are aiming at a general education of society. To sum it up, one day Prabhupada said, our entire philosophy can be summed up as chant Hare Krishna, dance in Sankirtan, and if you're tired, take some Krishna Prasadam. And after that, what? Same thing. Chant, dance, take prasad, happy, and continue that. Oh, but if you are a bit complicated and you say, why cannot I chant this particular hum, rim, rom, whatever words are given as private mantras by gurus today, or also in the 60s they were, and why Krishna? Why not somebody else? He said, if you have that complication in your mind, we have 80 books, 1,000 pages each to convince you. So he's saying, the books are not written to make you a bookworm. The books are written so that you can convince your own conditioned mind and intellect. Yes, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
You're muted.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I understood, Prabhuji.
Hare
Thank
Krishna,
you
yeah.
so much.
So in continuation with the Challam Mataji's question, Prabhuji, I might be wrong, okay? So, but this is the thought which crossed my mind. And I did express this with one of our God brothers also, Caitanya Charandas Prabhuji and Shankarandas Prabhuji. This is like a few years back, but again, now like in continuation. So I know like our main motto of Srila Prabhupada ISKCON is preaching. Give Krishna, that's the books, because his Guru Maharaj told him to print the books and spread the word. And Prabhupada has set up a standard that is like in US, when he came, like 16 rounds chanting, eat prasadam, read books, distribute the books. So which is good. But now the ISKCON has set up these courses. This is my personal opinion. I'm not judging or anything. What I felt is, isn't it like kind of forcing people to do, devotees who are interested, taking the shelter of Guru Maharaj and joining ISKCON, but at the same time they were asking, in order to get Diksha, you need to get you have to do these courses and then spread the word. But, we follow this Varnashna Dharma where like you have Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, the propensity, like, those qualities. So some are really good preachers and some are really great kirtaniyas, and some are like really good in seva, cooking and all. And bringing everyone on the platform of doing these courses, the knowledge, and then preaching, how, I don't know, it's my personal thing, Prabhuji, correct me so that it will be clear on my mind, how that is practically possible. I know we need to preach, not every 100 people joining is not 100 people are good in preaching, understanding, scholarly at that level, knowledge wise. Somehow I'm kind of never convinced about that thing. You can preach through kirtan too, you can preach through prasadam too, but kind of making it a mandatory, these courses. And I've seen some of them like taken back, like, oh, all this, like, oh, it's even in bhakti we need this process, kind of. Somehow kind of I'm mixed up with all these thoughts regarding that.
Thank you for opening your heart and being so honest about it. The general principle is this, that it all boils down to good leadership. Okay, what does that good leadership mean? Let us say you have 6 families who have been recently introduced because of your December Prabhupada Marathon book distribution. Now, as a rule, you don't know where do they stand intellectually or whatever. So you may recommend them, why don't you join for this class? There is discussion. And you may ask questions if you have any. Now, say 2 families, they come and expose their heart sentiment to you, saying that last 6 months we are hearing everything and we don't have any questions. So one way to see that would be, hey, that's not good. You have to ask questions, which means you're not attending, you're not sincere, you're not serious. No. Once Radhanath Maharaj was asked this question in a Bhagavatam class, that Maharaj, every Sunday, I don't get time on other days, but every Sunday, I don't miss the temple Bhagavatam class physically. We are talking about pre-corona times. So I can easily come. And I like to listen to whoever speaks, either you or any other person. But the only thing is, I'm not inquisitive because people say I don't ask questions. So Maharaj assured her, regular attendance in Bhagavatam class is itself the biggest indicator that you are inquisitive. Otherwise, somebody can ask a big convoluted question for 15-20 minutes. We also have people like that. Their question simply exposes their confused mindset. Right? Now, there are some people who ask questions on behalf of others. That also is good. But just because somebody is asking questions, therefore he's a scholar. Just because somebody doesn't ask a question, therefore she is a dullard. No, that protection comes from the top leadership. So, as I said, 6 families, you encourage all of them towards the path of simple online learning, whatever. If somebody falls off saying that, I just don't like this scholarship thing, I left my university 25 years ago, I don't want to revisit that, then you see whether they are having a service attitude. If they are non-envious, non-duplicitous, there is no prajalpa, they don't participate in rumor mongering or whatever, then you should know that they are actually higher situated than those who are simply clamoring for a certificate. Those who do not have that pure attitude, at least this Krishna says, Arjuna, one who studies this conversation between you and me, worships me with his intelligence. Isn't that? Is there in the Bhagavad Gita? So for some people, this puja of Krishna by using their intelligence is a must. For somebody who has already done that, they don't need to repeat it, because you can see by their nature, they are very simple, non-complicated, seva parayan, always ready to eager to do service. So those who are not eager to do service, at least with their karmendriyas, hands, feet, like that. Hey, Baba, at least use your intelligence. And then that service purifies them and they are pushed to the higher standard just because of that. So ultimately, if you are the leader of your small congregation, it's your duty to protect each and every devotee. So protection A is by engaging their intelligence in these courses, seminars, classes, whatever. B is somebody who is above that, to protect their identity by encouraging them that you don't need to do that. You just do your seva, because you have already reached the goal of these courses is to engage in service. And if somebody is doing that, that's glorious. No issues with that. Like we have 74-year-old grandmas, and in one congregation, I will not take the name, she was not supposed to be qualified because she doesn't know the 10 Gita verses which were necessary. So when I met somebody, I blasted them. I said, at age 74, will you remember? You are expecting her to do that? This grandma has encouraged duty worship throughout her home. She's like the main pillar for service. So sometimes we may lose sight of the essence and get caught up in the details.
We see that a lot, Prabhuji.
So you will be seeing that a lot, because that's the nature of this world. So what is the factor which will interfere? Good, mature leadership. There is no excuse for that. If you don't have it, beg, borrow, steal, but understand that maturity at that leadership level is the only thing which will be guiding a community. Nothing more, nothing less. If you say that these courses are useless, so we don't need to have any of them, you will suffer. If you say these courses are so good, each and every one should be run through that machine, that will set off some people. Some people who are already at a particular stage will feel offended, they will feel dry, they will feel threatened. They are too humble to protest. So we keep on trying. Like counseling, people associate Chopati with counseling. At one point of time, say 8 years after the program was started, one day Maharaj took the names of 5 or 6 families and said that, actually they are such good families, they love me, they love our community, but they simply don't like to take counseling. And we were surprised. Why is he himself saying that? So we should not keep them bereft of any of the benefits of our counseling process. Because at that time, our yatras, you take a counselor permission form. For the dramas, for the temple festivals, for temple services, it was easy because you know everybody by which counseling group they belong to. It is much easier administratively. But these 5 families, because of their non-participation, they were feeling left out. So Maharaj told us, the temple presidential board, that whenever it says counseling form, who is your counselor, you write your name and allow them to do service. I was amazed. It would have been very easy for him to say that these 5 have rejected my process and I have rejected them. Don't give them any service. No. It's like with 20 kids, you make the best of dosas or the best of appam or whatever, and you say, all of you should give me 10 out of 10. And if somebody says, I don't like this food, you say, hell, you're South Indian and you are saying dosa is bad? You say, well, I'm South Indian, but I'm staying in America. I like pizza, I like pasta, I like soups. Now, if he's saying, I want something brought from the store or which has flesh in it, that's objectionable. But as long as they are saying that I don't mind even if it is prepared in the most Vaishnava way and offered to Krishna, but don't serve me this kind of thing. So that small independence has to be given to people under us. That's mature leadership.
Yeah, you nailed the point, Prabhuji. Thank you. I appreciate. If you have time, I have a question because we're almost 9, Prabhuji, or you want me to save this question for next time? I'm fine with that.
Well, I can't say no to you. Tell me.
No, Prabhuji, we can wait for next week. There will be
You
other.
sure? If you remember it, we'll do it next time. We'll do
Yes.
it the thing. Yeah.
So today is like Gita Jayanti celebration. So we already finished our congregation just before your class. I think the West Coast devotees there must be having it now. That's why they did not attend. So maybe
Oh, I see. I see.
next week we'll attend. When they join, then we can ask. So they will also benefit from that question.
All right. Thank you all very much.